Hello and welcome to the December 2023 Energy Regulation Roundup. I'm your host, Gavin Simon, and it's good to be back. Today, on the Sustainability Podcast, we will dive into all major energy regulation news from major regions of the world, including Europe, the United States, and China. If you're new here, welcome, and if you're coming back, it's nice to talk to you again, and I hope you're doing well. December was a jam-packed month, so let's get right into it. Beginning with Europe, the United Kingdom followed in the footsteps of the European Union by announcing its own Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism, or CBAM. This is going to be able to address carbon leakage and further its decarbonization initiatives. Starting in 2027, the liability by the CBAM will depend on the greenhouse gas emissions intensity of the imported goods and the gap between the carbon price applied in the country of origin, if any, and the carbon price that would have been applied had the good been produced in the United Kingdom. The UK CBAM will place a carbon price on some of the most important and most carbon-intensive products imported into the United Kingdom, such as aluminum, cement, ceramics, fertilizer, glass, hydrogen, iron, and steel sectors. The United Kingdom CBAM will be applied to Scope 1 and Scope 2 emissions and select product emissions embodied in imported products to ensure comparable coverage with the UK emissions trading scheme. This is a major announcement that importers of these goods should be aware of. Yes, I understand that this does not take effect for a few years, but it is important to be well equipped for when it does come. Okay, so let's cross the pond and speak about the United States. During COP28 in December, the United States Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA, announced its final rule to reduce methane and other pollutants from oil and natural gas operations. This rule is expected to avoid an estimated 58 million tons of methane from 2024 to 2038. The EPA recognizes and incentivizes innovation and methane detection technology, such as satellite imagery, aerial surveys, and continuous monitoring to detect leaks. The rule also updates several aspects to provide the industry with the lead time needed to comply. These include a 2-year phase-in period for eliminating routine flaring of natural gas from new oil wells and a 1-year phase-in of zero-emission standards for new process controllers and pumps outside of Alaska. The EPA estimates that the rule will yield a net climate and ozone health benefits of $97 to $98 billion from 2024 to 2038. And just a quick fun fact, human-caused methane emissions account for about 30% of total greenhouse gas emissions. I find this pretty interesting because the United States announced its methane reduction plan 1 month after China. China is also the other largest methane emitter, and they announced their methane management plan last month in November after 2 years of its initial announcement at COP26. On the topic of China, let's discuss the cold wave that swept across Beijing during the last week of December. This cold wave set a record for the longest drop in temperature over a period in recorded history. Starting on December 11th, the temperature did not breach 0 degrees Celsius for over 300 hours, 12.5 days. This prolonged period of below freezing temperatures pushed the heating capacity of multiple northern cities in China and partially halted a power plant. Other regions cut heating to most government buildings and state-owned enterprises to prioritize limited resources for hospitals, schools, and residential buildings. Some northern cities in response alerted residents to stay indoors and limit heavy industrial production and halted coal processing, warning of heavy pollution over the coming days. As you may recall, a similar cold wave swept across the state of Texas a few years back, causing power outages for days. Now, 2 years later, we have seen multiple investments and policy changes to equip the grid if something like this were to ever happen again. Well, folks, that was our last Energy Regulation Roundup of the year. I'm looking forward to continuously producing these podcasts coming into the new year. If you have any suggestions, please feel free to email me at gsimon@arcweb. Find us next month at the Sustainability Podcast and make sure you subscribe so you can stay up to date.